This audio question comes to us from Jason in the Bronx.
What's up, Solomonster? My question today is, are you satisfied with the Bret Hart Stone Cold Steve Austin match we got at WrestleMania 13, or are you disappointed that we didn't get a return match for Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart from WrestleMania 12? And also, are there any other matches that didn't happen at a WrestleMania that you wish did happen?
I was more than satisfied with how things turned out on that WrestleMania. You know, sometimes they say things happen for a reason. I'm sure Bret and Shawn would have had a great match, but Bret Hart versus Steve Austin, WrestleMania 13, I mean, who could be upset that that match happened and went down the way it did and made a career? But even if it didn't make Austin, if Austin would have just kind of fizzled out after that as a match, it was awesome. So I don't regret that the original match didn't happen at all. I think things worked out quite well. As far as other WrestleMania matches that either were planned or were rumored and never happened, yeah, there's a whole bunch of them. There's a whole bunch, and it goes back even to Savage and Steamboat at WrestleMania 4, which I talked about on a recent show. That would have been a hell of a semifinal match in the World Title Tournament if they would have gone in that direction instead of having Steamboat lose in the opening round to Greg Valentine. They could have done Steamboat Savage with Savage going over and getting his win back from WrestleMania 3 and going on to become the heavyweight champion. So it's a shame that didn't happen. Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair at WrestleMania 8, even though I liked the Savage Flair match that we got, it should have been Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair. There really is no excuse for them not to do that match. WCW ended up doing the match themselves a few years later, and they popped a huge buy rate on pay-per-view, and that was in 94, so that was 2 years later. So you can't tell me that doing the first Hogan-Flair match on pay-per-view wouldn't have done a big number and wouldn't have drawn big business, because obviously WCW proved that it did, and WWF dropped the ball on that one. So Hogan vs. Flair should have been the main event of WrestleMania 8. It's a shame that it wasn't. Hulk Hogan and Steve Austin at WrestleMania 18. Austin could have had the match if he wanted it, if he pushed for it, if he accepted it. It would have been Stone Cold and Hulk Hogan at the Sky Dome. I understand the reasons why Austin didn't want to do it. He didn't think it would have been a good match. He was in a bad place at the time. And frankly, I think Austin realizes that it would have been a split reaction. I don't think that Steve Austin would have gotten as many boos as The Rock did. I don't think he would have been booed out of the building the way that Rocky was. But I think that he would have been probably not very happy at his reaction being dwarfed by Hulk Hogan. It would have been, look, it was the nostalgia pop that Hogan got. Hogan was going to get cheered by those people who remembered him from WrestleMania 6, no matter what. And I don't think Austin wanted to be showed up by Hogan. I think that was part of the reason why he probably didn't want the match. But if you take all of that aside, the biggest possible match that you could have done, which is one of the biggest dream matches in wrestling history, at least in WWE, the two biggest stars, Hulk Hogan versus Steve Austin. They had the chance to do it, and they didn't do it. That would have been huge. Shawn Michaels and Eddie Guerrero. A lot of rumors that they were possibly building to a match between the two of them at WrestleMania 22, and then Eddie died that November. And I believe that. I do believe the rumors, because if you look at what happened, if you look at what Shawn Michaels ended up doing, they put Shawn in a match with Vince McMahon. Now, Shawn went out there and carried Vince to probably the best match that Vince McMahon has ever been a part of. I know, big surprise, Shawn Michaels is able to carry somebody. But if you look at the feud from the way it started, it was so disjointed, because the way that whole feud started was in, I think, December. And there was a DVD. I can't remember who the DVD was even for. Maybe they did like a Montreal DVD, or maybe it was the Bret Hart DVD that had just come out. I don't really remember. But it was like Shawn in the ring with Vince, and Shawn made a comment to Vince about get over it. And Vince was so infuriated by this comment that he entered into a feud with Shawn where he was trying to make Shawn's life a living hell. It was some innocuous comment that sparked the whole feud. It was like no thought went into it. And I think that the reason it came off that way is because it was not Plan A. I think Plan A was probably for Shawn to go in there with an actual wrestler, and that wrestler probably would have been Eddie Guerrero, and I think they would have had one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history. I think they had the potential to go in there. And Eddie was not, physically in his prime at that point. He was already very old and very much beat up and hurting. But I think you take those two guys and you put them in the ring together. One guy wants to show the other one up. Boy, I think we really missed out by not getting that match. and I don't even know if they were ever in the plans, but 2 more matches that should have happened at WrestleMania, and it's too bad that they never did. I think John Cena and CM Punk deserve to have 1 match at WrestleMania. I thought they had great chemistry together. They could have torn the house down. They had a lot of classic matches, the Money in the Bank match in Chicago, that Raw match, I think from last year in February, which was one of their best matches. And they had other pay-per-view matches too. But they just had a certain chemistry. And they were 2 of the biggest stars of the modern era. You know, if you look at this most recent era, or generation, whatever you want to call it, I mean, you could throw Randy Orton in there. Daniel Bryan now has made a case. But I think of John Cena, I think of Edge, and I think of CM Punk as 3 of the biggest faces, 3 of the biggest names. So having that 1 Cena versus Punk match at WrestleMania should have happened, and it never did. The other match is John Cena versus The Undertaker. I pitched that match on this show for years, with Taker going over because I wouldn't have broken the streak. But the crowd reaction, the near falls in that match that they could have done, it would have been incredible. Even if they did it now, you know, the streak is done, it's over. It takes away the one thing about that match that would have made it special. Because it's not like I expected John Cena to go in there with The Undertaker and we're guaranteed to get a great match. Maybe yes, maybe no. They could have had a pretty crappy match. Especially if Undertaker's at the end of his rope and Cena's not exactly a guy who's known to go in there and, well, you know, he's going to carry people. That's not what John Cena's known for. I mean, they could go in there and stink out the joint. What would have made that match so special was knowing that the streak is hanging in the balance and people actually believing, holy shit, they're going to have Super Cena go over The Undertaker, and you know, because he's the golden boy. And he could be put on this pedestal, and maybe Undertaker wants to put him over. And I mean, you would have had people who were just jumping out of their seat, you know, hoping against hope that John Cena does not break the streak, and John Cena is not the one that they put over The Undertaker. With the streak being done, there's no need to do the match now. It's just a regular match. So I don't really see the point. On the other hand, you know, people talk about, well, they can't do the Sting match for the same reason. And I'm done talking about this. Okay, I'm as sick as you all are of hearing about it, but I just bring it up for this reason. Putting Sting in there in a match with The Undertaker, which I'm thinking more and more likely is not happening. I think Undertaker probably is really done. Every time I see him, I just think he's done. But you can still do the match and have a great story, and it makes sense. Because the only way you could do that match and have it make sense is if you go into that match making it very clear in advance it will be the last match for both guys. It's the retirement match for The Undertaker and for Sting. And only one guy can win. So in their last match and Sting's first match in WWE, where a lot of people probably figure, okay, he's not going to lose his one and only WWE match, but in the end, The Undertaker gets the win. Because I'm sure Sting would have no problem putting him over. But to give that match something, you know, to put something on the line, that's how you would do it. It's not about the streak. It's about, this is it. This is the end of the line for these two guys, and only one guy can win. Undertaker and John Cena, you can't do that. The only thing that match had going for it was the streak, and you took that away. So they killed it. But I think they really missed an opportunity by not having Cena as one of his opponents. Why they had to do 2 Triple H matches, I don't know. It would have made sense to take one of those years, maybe WrestleMania 28, but then they had the Rock Cena match, so they couldn't do it, so the timing just didn't work. But that's a WrestleMania match I think that should have happened.